You're listening to the Third Down Squad podcast, the best international news podcast for the National Football League. We're your hosts, Derek, Josh, and Toby. Let's get you ready for a new set of downs on Sunday.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Third Down Squad podcast. We're now less than 1 week away from the NFL Combine. Can't wait to watch some of the youngest and brightest NFL prospects. Today, we're going to be talking about AB, where he might land for his trade deal, Colin Kaepernick, and whether or not he will ever make an appearance back into the NFL, the biggest team needs for the AFC and NFC North, and, of course, my mock draft, my first mock draft for the season, and it will certainly change, but we're going to give it to you straight. That's Josh on the left, that's me in the middle, Toby on the right. And now we're going to start with Antonio Brown. Now, recently, as all of you are probably aware, Antonio Brown had recently met with the president of the team and discussed their future plans. And they both agreed that a trade was the best deal for both sides. I think we all can agree that Antonio Brown will get picked up by someone, given the talent that he has, even with some of the question marks of his ego and his age. His production still matches up to that. I guess the biggest question, Toby, is where will he land?
Well, I see a lot of teams that might be interested in Antonio Brown right now, because wide receivers are not that far spread on every team in the NFL. So the problem I see with Antonio Brown is a team needs the cap space for him. So that limits the teams that might pick him up a lot right now, because teams like Jacksonville, who need a wide receiver, for example, they don't have the cap space to get him. But the first team I'm thinking of might be the San Francisco 49ers to get help for Jimmy Garoppolo over there in their tough division. They need an upgrade there. They only have George Kittle right now, their tight end, that is their real number one receiver. And to have your tight end being your number one receiver, that says it all. You have a need to do something at wide receiver, and picking up Antonio Brown there and giving him a talented quarterback like Jimmy Garoppolo, it's a win-win for each side.
Mm-hmm. Josh, where do you think he'll end up?
Yeah, I was going to, until Toby said something about like the cap space, I was originally going to say the Bears, because I just like the idea of having Antonio Brown there to kind of fill in that main void for the Bears, because Jeffrey left. But I could actually see the, I'm not aware of their cap space right now, but I could actually see the Lions going for Antonio Brown to kind of give Stafford another weapon besides Marvin Jones.
Mm-hmm.
Because as we've seen this year, Matt Stafford, he's almost elite. I'm not going to say he's elite at all, because he's not right now, because he has a better record against losing teams than he does winning teams. Mm-hmm. But if Antonio Brown goes to the Lions, it's going to open up the playbook for the offensive coordinator in Detroit, help take the pressure off of Matthew Stafford for trying to perform, and essentially give the Lions a better chance to win the AFC North. They still have a lot of stuff to work with, but once you get the wide receiver settled down, then you can just start to focus on everything else. That's who I kind of see could make a run at him.
Well, given Antonio Brown's big contract, there's only roughly about 6 or 7 teams that could realistically sign him and still have some cap space to work with some other free agents. And obviously, when you look at the big three, it's obviously the Indianapolis Colts, who I could see doing it, but I don't really think that Chris Ballard would enjoy the ego that Antonio Brown brings. And I think that, we have enough confidence in T.Y. Hilton to still perform, Eric Ebron, Jack Doyle if he stays healthy, and we still have a collection of young wide receivers who were hurt last year during training camp that we still think could play. So I think the Colts are off the board, but then you think the Browns. And I heard Chase talk about it. I don't really think Chase really would enjoy that, but I think that he even can't deny how good Antonio Brown is. The Browns could potentially do it because the Browns are risk takers. We already saw them getting Kareem Hunt. You never know what could actually transpire there. And I kind of agree with Toby. San Francisco, that would be a great fit with Jimmy G, and then being able to take some of the pressure off of George Kittle. Having a George Kittle and Antonio Brown combination, that would be really fun to see. And then, another team I could possibly see is the Arizona Cardinals or maybe even the Jets. The Jets are also a team that I think are still searching for a number one guy to give Sam Darnold. And I think that if you gave Sam Darnold Antonio Brown, I think Sam Darnold would be very happy because it's very easy to get Antonio the ball. So I think that the biggest teams right now are San Francisco and the Jets, and I think also the Cardinals as well.
Yeah, and to your point that he might go to the Browns, I kind of don't see the Browns as a contender because I don't think that the Pittsburgh Steelers are trading Le'Veon Bell in their own division. That's the problem that I see with the Browns. I agree that the Browns might be a good fit for Brown, just that I don't see the Steelers trading him to their own division.
Yeah, because could you just imagine? Yeah, just imagine if they did get Antonio Brown, they had enough cap space to sign Le'Veon Bell.
Yeah,
just
but they already got Kareem Hunt and they have Nick Chubb. They're certainly not going for Le'Veon at this point, but I mean, all options are on the table for Antonio Brown.
It's fun to just just imagine if the Browns have the Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown to go up against the Steelers just to see what would happen for that.
Yeah, the Steelers would be toast. The Steelers would be done.
Yep.
Yeah, totally.
Here's what happens when you pay your teammates and don't sell them down the river.
Mm-hmm. Well, and, Antonio also mentioned that, he was sick and tired of Ben Roethlisberger and all these other things, saying that he was the guy that felt like he could say and do anything to teammates and get away with it. And even the GM even said that, it's Ben Roethlisberger's team. He's the leader. That's kind of what he's allowed to do. So, there's a lot of tension in the Steelers right now. And, wherever Antonio ends up going, he's definitely going to make an impact right away.
Yeah.
All right, so now we're going to switch on to Colin Kaepernick, who just last week made a deal with the NFL, a collusion deal, so he is no longer suing the NFL. Everything is all settled there. Now, the ultimate question is that whether or not the NFL will actually allow him to come back into the league and whether or not there's any team out there that actually will give him a shot. And Josh, I mean, who do you think right now would give him another chance to play football again, even if it's not in a starting position?
All right. I don't think, first off, for that first part, I think the NFL will still let him come back in to hold the door open. But I think right now it's just too late. It's been about, 2-3 years since he last had a snap in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I know that there's the option of him being a backup quarterback, but I think that his time has passed. He can still play football, but probably just not in the NFL. The new AAF that almost went bankrupt last week, or heck, even the Canadian Football League. But for hypothetical reasons, let's say if a team wanted him, I'd say that the team that would get him would probably be the Oakland Raiders or soon to be Las Vegas Raiders, just as a backup, because Derek Carr, he's hit or miss now. And I think that Colin Kaepernick adds that running element that is kind of needed in the Oakland playbook, because Oakland is a team that hits hard and plays hard, but Derek Carr has just been, hit hard because their offensive line just can't hold anything back against him. So that's the team I could see Colin Kaepernick going to if he does decide to go to the NFL again.
Yeah, Toby, what do you have to respond?
Yeah, From what Josh just said, I don't see him going to the AAF just because of what you read about. They tried to get him, and he didn't want to sign the collective money that every player in the AAF gets. I think it's about $500,000 per season, and he just wanted $20 million for a season. So I don't see Colin Kaepernick going to the AAF. Yeah, the CFL might be an option for him, but I don't know if he's really interested in playing in Canada up there. I think he might just be fine with the money he got with the deal and everything he got from the 49ers before and not playing football in Canada. But I believe that he actually has a chance to going back to the NFL. And yeah, Oakland might be a spot for Colin Kaepernick, but I see more the Carolina Panthers as the front runner for Colin Kaepernick right now. And I think that they are already thinking about it. I mean, they have Eric Reid on their team, who is a good buddy of Colin Kaepernick, of course, who supported him in all that kneeling during the anthem, and he was the second player to do it and all that. And the Panthers need a backup quarterback behind Cam Newton. You saw it last season. Cam Newton was hurt in the shoulder, but they couldn't pull him out of game because they had nobody behind him. And I don't think they are going to pick up a young quarterback to back up Cam Newton again just because it's an unknown how he can play, and Colin Kaepernick has proven himself that he can be a good quarterback in the NFL, a good enough quarterback that he should be a backup right now. Of course, you haven't seen him play on an NFL field in a game since 2016, so that might have changed a little bit, but if he gets back to practice and doesn't start a game for, I don't know, he might not even start a game anymore. You might not need to, but he can shake off that rust in practice and kind of be a good quarterback behind Cam Newton, who runs the ball that much that he's prone to injury. So he might be a good option for Carolina.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Toby. The Cam Newton shoulder injury is similar to what Andrew Luck had. It's not as severe, but it's definitely something that, Cam Newton's already a liability at throwing the football as is. That could obviously be something that Colin Kaepernick could come in. Well, first off, I'm glad this whole collusion thing is finally done and over with. I mean, I'm glad for Colin Kaepernick. I've always been anti-Kaepernick from the very beginning of this because I didn't appreciate, how he did what he was standing for. I appreciated what he was standing for, but not how he did it. But, Cap is finally got what he needed, and that's good for him. I do believe he would be a very good backup quarterback for whoever he played for. And I agree with you. It's hard to say he deserves a starting spot given he hasn't played in almost 3 years. So it's like we can't just throw him into a scenario. And to be completely honest, I think another team that might consider getting him is actually the New York Jets. I totally think that they would appreciate having him behind Sam Darnold. And I think that, I know that Sam Darnold's their future guy, but, there's always the possibility of something happening to Sam. And it's always, we've seen it in recent years, having a good backup quarterback has often been a great problem to have. And I think that, like Toby said, it's just a matter of getting the rust off. You see how good he is. He may be for one season as a backup quarterback. Probably doesn't get a lot of playing time, but he shakes some of the rust off. He looks decent. Maybe plays in a game or two, and then somebody with a real quarterback problem comes and says, "Okay, we're going to give Kaepernick a shot." That's what I most likely see happening. So I do hope that Kaepernick gets in at some point. It's just a matter of who's going to take that chance on him and if he's actually going to actually start again. All right, so now we're going to move on to the AFC and NFC North teams' biggest needs. We're going to basically run down every team in that division and give the top two biggest needs for that team and kind of give a brief description as to why we believe that. We're first going to start with the AFC North, and we will start with the Ravens. And Toby, what do you think are the two biggest needs for the Ravens right now?
All right. The two biggest needs I have on offense. The first need for the Ravens is a guard. And I mean, yes, they played a lot better with Lamar Jackson as quarterback, but they couldn't establish a run game all season. So they need somebody on the inside of the offensive line that can create holes. So a decent running back can get through that hole. And my number two need is actually that said running back, because they don't have anybody on their roster other than Lamar Jackson who can effectively run the ball. So their biggest need essentially is to establish a run game, and they need an offensive line and a running back for that. So Gordon running back it is for me.
Josh, what do you think?
Well, I'm going to go on the opposite side of the football for my analysis of the Ravens. I'm going to say that they're going to need one more linebacker and middle linebacker, because you can't just count on Terrell Suggs and the rest of the defensive line to always get through and hit the quarterback. So you need a good good cover middle linebacker. And my other thing would be I guess a free safety, because Eric Weddle is starting to show some wear and tear. So I think it's time to address that need. Nothing against Eric Weddle at all, but his numbers are slowly going down. So you might as well just get a free safety for the future to cover up that need.
Yeah, I agree with you. The defense is something they will address most likely in the draft. But I'm going to go with Toby. Offensive lineman is the first thing they need. Now that you have Lamar Jackson, who can run the football, but you do need to be able to establish a run game. An offensive lineman at any position right now could help them, because they are a bottom team when it comes to offensive lines. They absolutely need to do that to be able to protect Lamar Jackson. And I think a wide receiver is also something that they truly need. They do not have a number one guy. It is a toss-up between wide receiver and running back, because they really don't have it. Lamar Jackson is completely their offense. They don't have any weapons. So I do look for the Ravens to actively pursue a receiver in free agency, because that's what they always do. And I do think that they'll draft a running back and some defensive players along the line, but offensive linemen and the wide receiver are the two biggest ones. And now we're going to shift to the Bengals. Obviously, there's a bunch of issues here that I think they need more than two big needs for. But Josh, let's start with you here. What do you think are the two biggest needs for the Bengals?
Well, they addressed one of them, and that was getting rid of Marvin Lewis. No, I'm just kidding.
There you go. Yes.
But the biggest one on offense is definitely a big tight end. Tyler Eifert, man. He just got hurt, and it was terrible just to see what he was going through. He had such great potential in 2016. But, injuries have plagued Tyler Eifert, and I think they need to get a new tight end that is more durable. Not to take anything away from Tyler Eifert, but he's just too much of a glass cannon. So
yeah,
that's, I think, what their biggest need is right there. And a second one I'd say is, get a left tackle. That's another need right there, because Andy Dalton, if he's going to be your guy, you got to start treating him like he's your guy, not like a backup stand-in until the next draft. Mm-hmm. So I think you got to address the left tackle, because that seems to be where he's hit majority of the time. Yeah. So to get a new young left tackle in there is going to really increase his odds.
All right, Toby, what you got?
All right, I'm actually going on the other side of the line. I'm going with the right tackle as the number one need. But basically, they need about every position on offensive line. Like Josh said, Andy Dalton is getting hit from left and right. But from what I saw, I actually see him hit more from the right side, so I went with the right tackle. But yeah, the second need for me is a linebacker. The Bengals couldn't cover anything in the medium passing game or the short passing game with their linebackers. They couldn't get through to the opposing quarterback. So I think middle linebacker or even an outside linebacker, any linebacker at all, the Bengals need right now.
Yeah, I agree with you both on the tackle position. They really need offensive linemen at just about every spot besides right guard. Billy Price is, I think, the only one on there that solidified himself as the best guy on their O-line as a rookie. But other than that, I think every position on the O-line is up for grabs right now, especially at the tackle position. And then I agree with you, Toby. Linebacker is a huge thing because Burfict has continuously been getting injured, has been continuously getting penalized, and has recently been suspended because of bad hits. I think a linebacker right now is a nuisance position for them, and they truly do need somebody in the middle that's going to command that defense.
Yeah.
And now we're going to move. What's that?
I was going to say, I'm surprised nobody else addressed the tight end situation like I did.
Yeah, I mean, that was something that I think they'll address later on, but it's like tight end position, I think as long as Green stays healthy and as long as their receivers just find a way to stay healthy, then I think they're okay. But I mean, Eifert, it's a question of whether or not what his future is going to hold. But,
if he's even on the team anymore.
If he's even going to play, yeah. All right, now we're going on to the Browns. Toby, what do you have?
Well, first off, Derek, you basically said it in our Antonio Brown segment. Number one for me is wide receiver. Give Baker Mayfield another weapon on that field. It's simple as that. You just got to give that guy another weapon to generate touchdowns. That's the one thing they were lacking this season. They had a couple of young guys that performed decently well, but they need a clear number one receiver other than Jarvis Landry, which they can put in the slot as their kind of number 3 guy, but number 1 option, of course. But they need somebody on the outside, that quick, deep threat that they are kind of missing right now. And yeah, just keep the guys off of Jarvis Landry as well, because if you have a second guy on that offense, they can't just that easily cover 2 guys with 2 players, so somebody's going to be open in that case. So for me, they need a wide receiver, and the second need is a left tackle in Cleveland to protect that young quarterback in Baker Mayfield. So 2 picks or 2 needs for me to protect their biggest asset in years in Baker Mayfield.
All right, Josh, what do you got?
All right, I'm going back to the other side of the football again. I'm going to go defense. My first one is going to be a coverage middle linebacker, like I said, for the Ravens. I believe it was the Ravens.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, because Joe Schobert and I believe, I'm drawing names. Well, yeah, mostly Joe Schobert. He's starting to slow down a bit. And I think with this period in the NFL, you need to have a middle linebacker that can go from left to right on the football field in under like 4.4 seconds, even though it's not really possible. But you just need somebody to keep pace with all the slant wide receivers that are just wide open half the time. And another need on defense, I'd say, is they need another cornerback to balance out Denzel Ward, because I think that they're one cornerback away from having the most locked down, airtight pass defense in the NFL. So I think that's the other thing they need to address.
Yeah, I have heard people talk about corners, but I think that I agree with both of you in one sense. I agree with Toby on the left tackle. The left tackle position, I even got Chase's opinion on this. I had to go to Chase because, Chase is the guy that knows this stuff more than anybody else for the Browns. He always keeps up with this, so who better to get it than from him? He pretty much confirmed what I originally thought. A left tackle was definitely a need for them. Their O-line was average last year. It wasn't good, but it wasn't bad either. But they need someone to protect the backside of Baker Mayfield, and they did a decent job of that last year. But they need to continue to upgrade that O-line, because now that they do have a decent collection of receivers and a very good running back core behind them. If they can work on that, that would be a deadly offense. And then I agree with Josh on the linebacker position. I think that's the one position on the defense that they don't have a star in. Even though I think Joe Schobert's pretty good, he's continuously had a few injuries. He's had a few times where he's not been around, because I think you have Myles Garrett on the defensive line. He's your main guy. You have Denzel Ward and a couple of other good guys in the secondary. So that's pretty good. I think linebacker is the position that they really need to fix on. All right. And last but not least, in the AFC North, we're going to go with the Steelers. And I am going to start with this one here. And I think I'm going to go with what you guys did in the last few ones. All defense, all one side of the ball here. Because I think that even though they're going to lose Antonio Brown, even though they're going to lose Le'Veon Bell and all these other assets, I think that we saw last year that the defense was the hindrance in everything. And ever since they lost Ryan Shazier, their team has just not looked the same on defense. And that's why they need an inside linebacker. They truly need it because because the Steelers showed that a decent defense was the key to winning the division for them, or coming close. So they have to build around what's left of that. And the cornerback is also something that they truly need because they do not have a high value name on the corners. So, yeah, anything defense oriented is what the Steelers need to go for. Toby, what do you got?
I completely agree with you. I have inside linebackers number one. Basically, same as you said, since they lost Ryan Shazier, they didn't look as fast in their linebacker core. So they need somebody in the middle that can stop the run but can also rush the passer. And then the cornerback, I mean, they were really weak against the pass last season, so they need to address that. And yeah, basically same explanation as you said. And yeah, Josh, your thoughts?
Are we all having a hive mind? Because I had the same thing as you guys. I pretty much assume, I just said, you're going to need another middle linebacker in case Shazier goes down again. That way you're not left exposed.
That is if he's ever going to come back.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't know if Shazier's ever going to come back. He says he is, but we don't know for certain yet.
He is. He's that guy that has that drive, like James Harris.
So. I really do.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Yeah, but yeah, and you guys had the same idea as me. I said cornerback because they got like scorched by majority of the teams they played this year, and they just need to address that as best they can. And I guess the draft is going to be the way to do it because not a lot of cornerbacks are leaving unless Jalen Ramsey decides to ask to get traded again.
That just goes to show you right there that it's obvious what the issues are for the Pittsburgh Steelers if we're all agreeing that it's the inside linebacker and it's the corner position. That's it. It's what they definitely need. There's a lot more needs that they really need to address, but those are the two most important. All right, so now we move on to the NFC North. The first team we're going to discuss, the offensive line, or the Vikings. So I said offensive line and outside linebacker. They definitely need to increase their offensive line. They were the 22nd O-line in the NFL overall last year. Definitely not very good, especially when you have a deadly combination that they have in Kirk Cousins with Diggs and Thielen and Dalvin Cook. And they just weren't able to capitalize on that at the end of the season because they didn't have a good O-line. I think that's the first thing that they really need to go for. And then for some reason, that defense just was not very good last year as it was in the previous years. I think that's because they need an outside linebacker, somebody that can fling from sideline to sideline and be able to cover the down routes and everything that they need for that. So the offensive line and outside linebacker are the two biggest things for me.
Mm-hmm. All right, I just gotta say this was not prepared, but yeah, for me, number one need is a left tackle, number two need is a guard, and number three need is an outside linebacker.
Yeah, for anyone that watches this is not planned. This is just what we're going by. But let's see if Josh gets it too. But please explain, Toby. Please explain.
I mean, there is nothing more to explain than anything that you've said. I mean, Kirk Cousins, he got a great deal because he played great in Washington, and that was part because they had a good offensive line. And his decline in Minnesota, I think, can be explained with the weak offensive line play that they had last season. So they have to protect his blind side with a left tackle and possibly get two new guards because the inside was just weak for them. Every defender on the inside could basically walk through their offensive line and get to Kirk Cousins. And of course, the linebacker, as you said, they were a dominant defense 2 years ago, and last season there was just nothing up the middle from the linebacker, so, or off the edge of the linebacker as well. I'm also including the middle linebacker right here, because basically everybody behind the defensive line was just weak on their team.
Yeah. Josh, what do you got?
Let's see. They paid Kirk Cousins $80 million in guaranteed money.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say, and the Colts taught you well. Get a right guard because you're going to need it. They need a right guard to protect Kirk Cousins. And not just that, everything needs to be replaced on that offensive line. It's not to take anything away from the players that are on there, but come on, you're getting paid all this money. You're still going to let Kirk Cousins take a beating for you?
Mm-hmm.
Somebody's got to change there. And on the defensive side, you guys are right. They need a middle linebacker as well. But also, I think they also need a better nose tackle on the defensive side. Because right now, it looks like Xavier Rhodes is their only star player on their defense.
Mm-hmm.
Aside
and with Griffin having some, health and mental issues right now, there's questions of whether or not he's all there, because he was an all-pro player at one point just last season. So it's like, he went from being an all-pro player to where did he go to? So, you're right. The defense does need a lot of help there.
Mm-hmm.
All right, next team we're going to is the Lions. And Josh, we're going to start with you. You kind of already talked a little bit about the wide receiver spot, but what are your two biggest needs for the Lions?
Two biggest needs, I'm going to say a left guard for Matt Stafford, because as we all know, and we're Colts fans, your quarterback can't be an all-star quarterback if he's on his back.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're paying him all that money, they got to start treating him like he's not a backup quarterback. So they got to get an offensive line for him. And the second need, as I stated earlier, I know it's not possible for Antonio Brown to go there, but they need another wide receiver. Marvin Jones can't do it all. In fact, I just don't even know what the other wide receivers are for them, because Marvin Jones seems to be the only one that gets targeted. Mm-hmm. And you could go on that they need another tight end, they need another nose tackle, but those two are the biggest needs that I think the Lions need.
What you got, Toby?
Yeah, I mean, Josh talked about the pass receivers, and I thought about it as well, but then I'm looking at the example of Eric Ebron and Golden Tate, and what kind of production they got from other teams compared to Detroit. So I don't see much of a needed wide receiver and tight end, because, I mean, they barely use them right. So I'm going on the other side of the ball. If you're not scoring the points yourself, you got to keep the other team from scoring. So I'm going as the first need as a linebacker to get the pressure on defending or the opposing offense, and a cornerback to take away that the passing game, especially in a division in which is an Aaron Rodgers, also a Mitch Trubisky, and a Kirk Cousins if he gets back to the form that he had 2 years ago. So you need somebody to protect deep down the field. So cornerback and a linebacker against the good rushing abilities of especially the Vikings and the Chicago Bears.
You know what I just...
Yeah, go ahead, Josh.
They also just let go of Grover Quinn, their free safety,
Yeah.
So they need a free safety as well.
Yeah, and I was about to say a receiver was one of those until I heard Toby say, yeah, look at what Eric Ebron did in Indianapolis. Look at what Golden Tate's doing with the Eagles. It's not that these receivers are bad. It's that these Lions players don't play well with them, and the coaching staff's not using them in the right ways. I agree, Josh, and I agree with Toby that the defense needs to be rerouted on almost everything. I mean, Darius Slay is their number one corner, and he's one of the best corners in the league right now, but he's really their only good defensive player at this moment. Ansah is most likely going to be gone. He's most likely going to be a free agent and moved on because the Detroit Lions aren't going to want to pay anybody for that. They're going to need a corner. They're going to need a defensive end. They're going to need that pass rush. And like Josh said, the free safety position, you lose another guy. So ultimately, I think it goes down a lot to what I said about the Steelers. Just defensive overhaul is what the Lions truly and utterly need. All right, we're now going to go to the Bears. Toby, what do you think are the biggest needs for the Bears?
All right, I think my two choices are gonna come as kind of a surprise. Cause first off, I'm gonna go with an edge rusher for the Bears. I know they got Khalil Mack, but imagine that defensive line with a second edge rusher opposite of Khalil Mack. What that defense can do.
That's Leonard Floyd. I know Leonard Floyd plays linebacker a little bit, but he is that edge rusher a little.
Yeah, but give me Leonard Floyd at a linebacker and give me another edge rusher. Give me that
Ezekiel
defense.
Ansah. Get Ezekiel Ansah over there.
Yeah, that's it right there.
And number two, I know not a popular position for needs, but the position that scores the most points in football, which is a kicker. Give the Bears a kicker that can actually score a field goal.
That was blocked and you know it.
Yeah, but it's like it's not even as bad as the kick itself. It was like everything that kicker had dealt with up to that point. He was bad all season, and then sure enough, it just got even worse with that. All right, Josh, what do you got?
As I said before, I think that Mitch Trubisky needs a big-time wide receiver because the Bears offense was only on autopilot just to give the Bears defense a rest this entire season. The Bears defense carried that team to that playoff spot. And I think if you give Trubisky another offensive weapon, he'll do fine. And my other thing that they need is, again, they need a right or left tackle. They just need to rebuild that offensive line again. Because Trubisky, if you want him to succeed, you need to have him stand up. And I think that if he feels safe in that pocket, then he'll do fine. But there's just sometimes it just looks like he just is getting pressured out of his mind and he doesn't know what to do. So I think they need an offensive lineman and a wide receiver, like a number one wide receiver.
I totally agree with you, Josh. I do. I think it is offensive line, and I think it is wide receiver because, we all saw what the Bears did for defensive-wise last season, and I definitely think they will continue to address some more of that in the draft and wherever they decide to do with that because I think they want to continue to try and get better. But when it comes to protecting Mitch Trubisky, everyone keeps questioning, can Mitch Trubisky do all this stuff? Well, yeah, if you can protect him, then that gives him a better chance. And like you said, since Alshon Jeffrey, the Bears really haven't had a number one guy. And those number one guys that they usually have, they're always hurt. So you want to try to find a reliable number one piece for Mitch Trubisky because they already have a good combination of running backs. Now they just need the O-line and a couple of receivers to match that. And now, last but not least, the Packers. And I'll start with this one. This is kind of a tough one just because they need help at just about every position except for wide receiver and running back. I think I agree with Toby. I originally had an edge rush, which they actually really do, but I think that at this moment, I agree with Toby. The offensive line is just as important because we saw Aaron Rodgers get hit a lot more often. And given the Bears and the Vikings' ability to pass rush at times, it definitely deserves some credibility there. The O-line definitely needs an upgrade. They've been begging for that for a long time. And I think a safety is another thing that they need to address. They've been trying to address the safety situation for a long time, and it's just not panned out. They just need to continuously keep getting help on defense. So my biggest ones are the O-line and the safety position. What do you guys got?
Well,
Toby, go first. Let Toby go first.
Yeah, first off, the biggest need, and I think a lot of Green Bay Packers fans are going to agree with me, give them a better edge rush. Clay Matthews slowed down a lot over the last couple of years, so they need somebody to get that pressure on the quarterback from the outside. And the second one, like you said, Derek, for me is also the offensive line, especially a guard, to help protect Aaron Rodgers and also giving them room to run the ball with Aaron Jones.
All right,
Yeah.
Josh, what do you got?
I think they need a new center. They need somebody, a new, younger spearhead to that offensive line that can actually go in and actually take a hit from Akeem Nicks and, just keep him upright. Because Aaron Rodgers, another hit from Anthony Barr and another broken collarbone, I think he's going to be done because he's going to be fed up with how the Packers have treated him. And I think the one more need that they do need to have is they just need to have another running back that, is a true running back. I know that they had some fillers here and there, but they just need a new number one running back that can actually get the ball down the field and wasn't a converted wide receiver into a running back. There's plenty of stuff the Packers need to fix besides quarterback and potentially wide receiver. But those are the two biggest needs that I think that they need to address.
All right, so we've discussed the AFC and NFC North. We will be discussing the AFC and NFC West next week. But last but not least, we will be discussing my mock draft that I have created for this week. We are going to start with the first pick of the 2019 NFL Draft. The Arizona Cardinals will select Kyler Murray, the quarterback from Oklahoma. I do believe that Kyler – oh, hold on. Toby wants to work something here with the graphics.
Derek, you know what you should have done? You should go like mock draft.
Mock draft.
All right.
No, you got to do it.
Yeah, okay.
We're back. Good?
Yeah.
All right, awesome. All right, so yeah, number one pick, Kyler Murray, quarterback from Oklahoma. I do believe that Arizona will make the move and transition to Kyler Murray. Now, that might be that's obviously a gamble pick. I do think that I might end up changing that at some point. But right now, from what it's looking like, I'm willing to take the bet on that if the Arizona Cardinals coach continues to keep pressing with the GM. And with the second pick, the San Francisco 49ers will select Nick Bosa, the defensive end from Ohio State. It's just the same thing as with Joey Bosa. Bosa is obviously a top 3 talent, and someone in the top 3 is definitely going to pick him. Was the best defensive player. Some say the best player overall as in college last year before he went down. And I think that he's just a great mechanic with his bull rushing and his ability to use his hands. He's just got that deceiving power that people don't quite understand. And then for my third pick, the Jets will select Quinnen Williams, the defensive tackle from Alabama. This was a toss-up between an O-line and a defensive line. They need help on both. But from what I'm hearing about Quinnen Williams and his ability to just disrupt everything in the pass and the rush, I think that he will definitely land top 5 or top 10 at least within this draft. And then with the fourth pick, the Oakland Raiders will select Josh Allen, defensive end out of Kentucky. I did not know his name much until a couple weeks ago when his name was brought up on a bunch of mock drafts. I went and looked at him a little bit, and my goodness, he is good at being able to get a pass rush. I think Oakland is looking for that pass rush after obviously getting rid of Khalil Mack. So they are definitely going to address that need in this round. And then with the fifth pick, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will select Luka Dennis, the strong safety out of Boston College. There's a couple of good safeties in this draft, and I think Tampa Bay has a lot of issues they need to fix on defense, given how poorly they played at the start of last year. But I think that they found a slight bit of a pass rush at the end of the year, so I think they're going to start focusing on getting their secondary fixed. And then with the sixth pick, the New York Giants will select Jonah Williams, the offensive tackle from Alabama. Now, this is going to be one of those ones that may change because they're obviously, I think, even though their general manager doesn't say so, I think they are searching for a quarterback behind the scenes. and they obviously need help on the O-line. That's no denying that. I think that they kind of saw what the Colts did. A lot of teams saw what the Colts did. You draft offensive linemen, you get the right ones, and it can really help your quarterback. So I definitely think they're going to shoot for some offensive linemen. And the 7th pick, the Jacksonville Jaguars will select Dwayne Haskins, the quarterback from Ohio State. I think we all can agree that Blake Bortles has kind of overstayed his welcome in Jacksonville, has not performed, and I think they're willing to take a huge loss to try and go for the inexperienced but yet bright prospect that is Dwayne Haskins. And then the 8th pick, the Detroit Lions will select Ed Oliver, the defensive tackle from Houston. Ed Oliver is was one of the biggest premier defensive linemen coming out of this class here. He's got dynamic playmaking ability in all facets. He's definitely going to be a top 15 pick in this draft because of his just sheer playmaking ability. Then with the 9th pick, the Buffalo Bills will select Marquise Brown, the wide receiver from Oklahoma. I think Buffalo has Josh Allen showed that he could do a few things to win his team some games. I think if they feel they have confidence in LaShawn McCoy staying, but they really don't have a true number one guy right now, and their defense is average, I think they want Marquise to be able to make some big playmaking abilities. And then with the 10th pick, the Denver Broncos select Greedy Williams, the defensive back from LSU. I think Denver is looking to replace some of their secondary after obviously losing Aqib Talib and a couple others in their secondary. Greedy Williams, in my opinion, is the number one defensive back in college right now. I think that he would make a great replacement for Aqib Talib going forward. Guys, what do you think of my first 10?
Well, I can tell you right now, it's looking a lot different than mine in the 5.
All right,
what you got, Toby?
First off, your pick number 1, Colin Murray. You said it. It's dependent of whether they're going with Rosen or not. Me personally, I wouldn't get rid of Rosen in the Cardinals' shoes. Then number 2, Bosa is an obvious pick if Colin Murray is the first overall pick. And I actually have 2 picks that I can't really see that way. The first one is Lucas Dennis to Tampa Bay. Yes, they need help in the backfield. I had them draft a cornerback last week. If you haven't watched that episode, go watch it. But the thing is, I don't see Lucas Dennis as the number 1 safety on the board and the best fit for Tampa Bay. So I would go with somebody else like a Dante Thompson from Alabama or something in that area. Mm-hmm. And the second pick I can't really agree with is Buffalo, kind of for the same reason. I had them draft a wide receiver as well, but I don't see Brown from Oklahoma as that top guy in that tier for the draft to pick him that high. There are other better wide receivers from my point of view. So I have them going wide receiver as well, just with a different wide receiver.
Gotcha. That's something that probably will end up being changed. It's just rough estimate right now. But Cincinnati with the 11th pick, they will select Devin White, the inside linebacker from LSU. We talked about it in the podcast earlier. They needed a linebacker to help take some of the pressure off on that defense. And I think Devin White is one of the best linebackers to start right now, and they truly do need someone like that. And with the 12th pick, the Green Bay Packers select Byron Murphy, the strong safety out of Washington. I think, like I said before, the Packers truly do need a safety. They need somebody who can definitely cover. And Byron Murphy is a strong, fast, tall safety, and he can win a lot of those one-on-one matchups when going up for the ball. And with the 13th pick, the Miami Dolphins select Rashawn Gary, defensive tackle out of Michigan. I think they've definitely been searching for a pass rush. And Rashawn Gary, who a lot of people actually have going in the top 10, actually. It's just all a matter of, what he does at the combine because he was obviously injured at the end of the season. Rashawn Gary is, obviously a very talented young playmaker, and I look forward to seeing where he falls. And with the 14th pick, the Atlanta Falcons select Dexter Lawrence, defensive tackle out of Clemson. Dexter Lawrence, one of the premier defensive linemen from a season ago and then this season as well. Just a solid playmaker on both sides of the ball, or on the both assets of the ball. I mean, he can stop the run and gain a pass rush. It's just insane what this kid's able to do. And then with the 15th pick, the Washington Redskins select Anthony Johnson, wide receiver from Buffalo, who a lot of people say is the number one receiver in college right now. In Washington, it's a toss-up between QB and receiver for me right now. It's all a matter of what they do before the draft, whether or not they get a quarterback from someone. If they don't, I think their odds of selecting a quarterback is much higher. But right now I have them selecting a receiver since they still are looking for a number one. Guys, what do you think of 11 through 15?
Toby?
All right, so well, yeah, I agree on most of your picks. You said Murphy to Green Bay as a safety. I see Murphy more as a cornerback, but he can play both positions, so that's a great deal for Green Bay as they need help in the backfield on about every position they have. And yeah, all the other guys I basically have about the same way as you do. The only thing is I'm Miami. I'd probably go with offense like I did with a wide receiver and not the defensive line. But if it falls like it does in your draft, I'd probably go with Gary at that position as well.
Okay. Josh?
Yeah, those sound well, yeah, from what I looked at on mine, sounds pretty much almost the same. Like I said, I'm one of those wild spirits. I have people going somewhere else, but that's really close to what I have. So I can't wait to share it with you guys.
All right, let's do it. All right, so now moving on with the 16th pick, the Carolina Panthers select David Edwards, a offensive tackle from Wisconsin. David Edwards, who, besides Jonah Williams, is regarded as the second best tackle coming out of college. Carolina obviously needs some pass protection in order to protect Cam Newton, given his shoulder and the amount of hits he's taking. I definitely think they need an upgraded offensive line. Then with the 17th pick, the Cleveland Browns select Andre Dillard, a tackle out of Washington State. Dillard is a machine when it comes to pass protection. He is actually, I think he's graded as the second best pass protecting tackle coming out of this draft behind Jonah Williams. And I think Dillard would be perfect for the scheme of Cleveland trying to protect Baker Mayfield. And then with the 18th pick, Minnesota selects Greg Little, a tackle from Mississippi. I know I had 3 straight tackles from 16 to 18, but again, Minnesota, we talked about it earlier in the podcast. They need help on the offensive line, and Greg Little is really good at both pass protection and being able to block downfield. So I think that's a big addition for them. And then with the 19th pick, the Tennessee Titans select Christian Wilkins, defensive tackle from Clemson. Again, one of Dexter Lawrence's teammates. A lot of people obviously have a lot of faith in this kid because of his ability to get a pass rush. And that is one thing Tennessee desperately needs on their defense. And with the 20th pick, the Pittsburgh Steelers select Devin Bush, inside linebacker from Michigan. We all said it. They need an inside linebacker. And Devin Bush is one of them, one of the best in the business right now. His ability to stop the run up the middle and being able to protect the middle of the field is exactly what Pittsburgh needs right now. Josh, what do you think of 16 through 20?
I definitely like the Browns and the Steelers picks that you have because they really fit the scheme and the name of the game that they need. So those are my biggest ones. And yeah, I'm liking the way you're thinking. You're thinking with your head, not with your heart on this one.
Trying to.
Yeah.
Toby, you had a little bit of a look of disgust or something on your face there, dude.
Not at all. I mean, I like the picks. I mean, it feels the needs for every team of the 5 teams that we just discussed, and it's, I think, right where these players pretty much belong in the draft. So
yeah,
I like it.
All right, there we go, getting some approval. All right, we'll see what you guys think of the 21th pick. With the 21th pick, Seattle selects Colin Farrell, defensive end from Clemson. I know that it seems like with Seattle and defense, it doesn't seem like they really need that much, but Frank Clark, we don't know if he's actually going to stick around or not. And I know that they could use some other big things, but Colin Farrell, a lot of people have actually ranked as a top 10 player in their drafts, mostly because of his ability, again, to get a pass rush. It just seems like everyone on Clemson's defensive line is just a natural-born pass rusher. And I think with him and the addition of Frank Clark on the other side, that defensive line for Seattle would be as good as it has been for a long time. And then Baltimore with the 22nd pick, they will select A.J. Brown, the wide receiver from Mississippi. A lot of people are high on this guy. He doesn't have great speed, but his ability, his catch radius, and his ability to come down with 50-50 balls is second to none. He's got amazing hands, and it all depends on what Baltimore does in free agency. They might end up going an offensive lineman, hence if they get a receiver in free agency. But if they don't and they get offensive line in free agency, my first pick, they're going with that receiver. And then with the 23rd pick, the Houston Texans select Mitch Hyatt, offensive tackle from Clemson. Texans have always had a difficult time with offense. They're actually, I think Deshaun Watson was actually the most sacked quarterback last year, if not the closest. He was one of the closest ones. And a lot of that is because of their left tackle position. They have not had a good left tackle for a very long time, and I think they're finally looking for one for that. And then the Oakland pick, with the 24th pick, they will select Stanley Morgan Jr., wide receiver from Nebraska. A lot of people compare him to Amari Cooper in his style of play, just his ability to gain speed in the middle of the field and make those great big balls. And I think Stanley Morgan Jr. is definitely a good fit for them because they need to replace that wide receiver core. And then with the 25th pick, the Philadelphia Eagles select Jaquan Johnson, defensive back from Miami, Florida. Now, a lot of people had him a little farther back. I honestly think he's a little bit he's actually a pretty good pickup with his ability to play press coverage. That one might be one that I might look to change a little bit later on, but that's what I see Philly going for. What do you guys think for 21 through 25?
I like a lot of it. I mean, I agree with Seattle needing another edge rusher, but like you said, a lot of people have them in their top 10. If you haven't watched the draft yet, I'm gonna say right here, I have Colin Farrell at my number 4 to Oakland, actually. So for me, he wouldn't be available at number 21 for Seattle. So I'm not sure if Farrell is available for Seattle, but I like the edge pick. I also love wide receiver, offensive tackle, wide receiver for Baltimore, Houston, and Oakland. As well as Philly, cornerback with Johnson from Miami. The only issue, like you said, that I have is that it might be a little too high for Johnson, actually. I see him as a maybe early second-round pick. Problem is that he probably is not around until Philly picks in the second round. So, ideal scenario is that Philly can trade back, but I wouldn't be opposed to them picking Johnson in the first round.
Okay.
Yeah, my idea kind of goes along with Toby's, but first off, I gotta say, 21th pick.
Yeah,
You see,
21st, yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I missed that one.
That's not to be mean. I'm just saying. I just heard
No,
21.
no, I didn't even realize I said.
Yeah. With the 21th pick.
Yeah, I was going to say 21 pick, but it just.
But yeah, I'm with Toby on this one. I did like the wide receiver aspect, you know.
There you go.
Because they actually fit
like
the
that.
team.
There you go. Good. I'm
See,
glad you guys
positive environment. We have a
Positive
positive
energy.
environment.
We're all about positivity on this podcast. All right, here we go. With the 26th pick, Josh, and I think you might like this one.
Greedy Williams.
26th pick. The Indianapolis Colts select Draymond Jones, the defensive tackle from Ohio State. Draymond Jones has been, last season, had 15 tackles for a loss and had multiple different sacks and was a turnover machine in the absence of Nick Bosa. Draymond Jones is a great overall player, and his ability to make plays in the backfield is what the Indianapolis Colts said they need. They might end up going for somebody different, but when it comes to at that point, I think Draymond Jones is one of the better pass rushers at that time. All right, and with the 27th pick, the Oakland Raiders select Mack Wilson, a linebacker from Alabama. Again, going with the defensive pick, I think that was the second biggest problem that they had was linebacker position after obviously an edge rush. And with the 28th pick, the Los Angeles Chargers select Cameron Smith, linebacker from Southern California. And I'm glad I said LA, the Los Angeles Chargers, not San Diego Chargers like I did the other day. Yeah, and I think that they need help there because I think they have faith in their secondary. I think they have faith in their defensive line to create a pass rush, but they're still looking for answers at the linebacker position, and I think Cameron Smith could help them with that. And with the 29th pick, the Kansas City Chiefs select DeAndre Baker, cornerback from Georgia. Some people have him a little higher, and I could see why they would do that. But DeAndre Baker, the Kansas City Chiefs, their entire defense needs an upgrade from linebacker all the way to every position in the secondary. You saw, especially in the playoffs and all season long, they just got shredded at every aspect of it. They need somebody that can play press coverage and play man with somebody, and DeAndre Baker could be that answer. And with the 30th pick, the Green Bay Packers select Montez Sweat, defensive end from Mississippi State. That's the edge rush that Toby was talking about earlier that the Packers truly do need. Montez Sweat, I actually originally when I was doing the mock draft, he was originally a little bit higher. I actually had the Colts thinking of getting him, and that's something that the Colts fan pages have been talking about a lot. But I think that he falls back to Green Bay. And I'm going to just finish these out. I know it's past 5, but we'll just keep going with these last 2 here. With the 31st pick, the Rams select TJ Edwards, a linebacker from Wisconsin. I think they need another linebacker. I think that their secondary, I think they don't really need anything at the moment for a first rounder. And they obviously have a very good pass rush, and their defensive line obviously does not need much there. But I think they're still looking for that command in the middle. And TJ Edwards is a very good run stopper. And with the 32nd pick, the New England Patriots select Drew Lock, the quarterback from Missouri. If Josh Rosen doesn't get traded, I think Josh Rosen most likely gets traded to New England if that's a possibility. But if not, I could see them selecting Drew Lock as the next quarterback because obviously Tom Brady is going to be gone sooner or later. It's not going to be this year, but at some point in the near future. it would be great for them to have Drew Lock as a replacement, learn the system for a year or two, and then when Brady finally does leave, he's ready to go and take that spot. What do you guys think for 25 or 26 through 32?
Yeah, your 32nd pick. I actually had that idea as well. I'm not gonna lie. I actually had the Patriots I thought the Patriots could trade up to get Drew Lock, but I think you're right. He could fall back to the 32nd pick.
Yeah, I think so.
And Draymond Jones. Yeah, I like that one too for the Colts.
There you go.
Get Tyquan Lewis healthy, and then have Draymond Jones. Damn, we're rebuilding the damn Ohio State defense.
Yeah, we're building the Ohio State defense right there. Yeah.
Yeah, Derek, I like your picks. Only thing is, the Chargers, I see more of a need in the backfield on defense. So if somebody is available for a cornerback or safety, I take him over linebacker there. And I actually, for Green Bay with Montez Sweat, I picked him with their original 12th pick because I like his style that he plays, and I think he would be a really great fit for Green Bay, who need that kind of edge rusher. And like you said, the Colts, I mean, at least the fan base are thinking about getting Montez Sweat as well. So I think bless you, Josh.
Thank you.
They might get him a little bit earlier and take somebody else later, just so he doesn't get snatched up by a different team like the Colts. But other than that, I agree with you.
All right. Well, that was my mock draft. Our mock draft. My mock draft for this week. Next week, we will be talking about Josh's.
Get ready to crap on this one.
This is our first mock draft, so if there's any suggestions that you guys want Toby or I to make after hearing our mock drafts, be sure to leave a comment under the video and give us some articles as to why. Give us some comments as to why you would change this, because obviously we don't know all the fan bases quite like some of you might. So give us some suggestions to think about, and we'll look at that going forward. But after all, that is the end of this podcast. Thank you guys so much for watching. And Toby and Josh, thanks for doing this with me again. And be sure to follow all of our accounts, YouTube, and listen to it on Spotify. And be sure to subscribe to PewDiePie. See you guys later.
See ya.
Bye.